Hello, BookTube. Despite the day's sopping humidity, I did indeed go out in the late morning and early afternoon. I had an appointment to meet an old friend on Beacon Hill for lunch, and I wanted to stop in and see another old friend in the State House. So I was right in the area of the Brattle Bookshop here in downtown in Boston. Those of you who might be new to the channel, the Brattle Bookshop is a used bookstore here in Boston that I used to go to every day. They have such a high turnover rate of books that you can go every day and see something new. Plenty of people do. And then I started going a few times a week, but not every day. And then lately, just in the last few months, I haven't really got there as often as I used to do at all. So when I get anywhere near, I make a point of going there. And I found a bunch of books, so I wanted to show you them. Starting with these three gems. They're battered. They won't last more than the one reading, but I'll give them the one reading with a huge amount of pleasure. These are murder mysteries by Georgette Heyer, the romance author, the Regency romance author. She did murder mysteries as well, and I every time I read one of them, I'm always struck by violence going on in the background there. Every time I read one of her murder mysteries, I'm always struck by how happy they are. Such happy books. They are the murder mystery equivalent of her happy romances, and they're tend to be really well plotted, and they all star her same detective, Hanaside, who's he's a police detective who is charismatic and outspoken and well known, world famous, a pretty good detective character as detective characters go. And there were three of these wonderful old vintage Georgette Heyer murder mysteries there, and I think I've only read one of them. The first one is A Blunt Instrument. Look at that cover. The window is open. The window door is open. And there he is. So A Blunt Instrument is number one. And then this one, which is the only one I think I've ever read, is Behold, Here's Poison. There's the great vintage cover for that one. And then this one is Death in the Stocks. Well, the cover has been eaten away a little, but that's okay. These will definitely hold up to a reading. And I don't know when I'll ever see them again, so I was going to grab them. I'm always up for a nice, quick murder mystery, and for it to be Georgette Heyer and a book that maybe I haven't read, maybe I have read them, with her murder mysteries, with little, mid-century Georgian English country house murder mysteries. They can sometimes blur in my mind. I can sometimes even forget the title and just think, okay, I haven't read this, and I get 30 pages in and remember that I have. But I don't think so. I think these are going to be mostly a delight. And then we have Barbara Pym. This is Crampton Hotnet, a novel of hers that she wrote in the late 1930s, and then the war happened, and she started it. She was working on it as the war started, and it didn't really amount to anything. She soon got distracted, not only by war duties, but also by the workings and the plots of things that would become her much better known novels. So she just sort of put this aside, and then 20 years later, she revisited her manuscript and made all sorts of annotations all over it in pencil. But again, did nothing with it. So it was until the 1980s that her literary executor decided to brush off that manuscript, go through it, remove obvious infelicities that Barbara Pym would have removed herself, and also incorporate a lot of those pencil annotations, and made a book that I've only read once, and I blew through it. So this is effectively going to be a first-time read, and I remember how charming the story is. One of the elements. It's all about mismatched lovers, like so many of her books are. But one of the stories in here is about a young couple who are living in the same big boarding house, the same home. They're having their rendezvous out in the countryside a little too often and a little too noticeably, and need to come up with a story for why they keep disappearing into the woods. So they make up a place. They make up a village with a curate and a bunch of people that they're visiting, and the lie just gets more and more elaborate, and it's very funny. It's very fun in a lighthearted way. All of her books have a very definite humor running through them, but the humor gets darker and more acidic the further on you go. I don't remember anything like that tone in this book, so I can't wait to read it again. That's going to be great. And then I saw this book at the Brattle the last time I was there, and it outraged me, of course. It morally outraged me that I would even see it, that it would even dare to show its face to me, and then I forgot about it, and then I saw it again today and thought, okay, maybe this is a sign. Because seeing the same book multiple times at the Brattle is odd. There are many, many people who shop there all the time, and the stock overturns all the time. So one of the little rules that I tend to tell people, there are no rules at the Brattle, of course, but when I take somebody to the outdoor sale lot for the first time, I tend to tell them, grab everything that strikes your fancy at all, and carry it in your hand. Don't look at one cart and say, oh, that one looks really interesting. I might be interested in that. I'll have to come back to it, because somebody else will grab it in the time you're shopping. Grab everything and then decide. And the fact that I saw this again, I had to get it, even though it's almost an act of high treason. This is The Cats in Our Lives. This is by Pamela Colino and James Mason, who were an actor-actress team who then married and had cats. And this is the story of those cats, and it's illustrated by James Mason, who's I guess I now learned belatedly he was a dyed-in-the-wool cat person. I guess that shouldn't come as a surprise to me. Any of you who've ever seen his acting, he's a very cat-like actor. so maybe it shouldn't surprise me. But now I have The Cats in Our Lives by the Masons, and I will read it with my attempt at an open mind. And then the next one is history. It's Patriot Battles by Michael Stevenson. I got this in a trade paperback originally. This is a nice small hardcover. I don't know where my trade paperback is. I might have sold it. I might have given it away to somebody. And it's just a military history of the American Revolution told from battle to battle rather than as a conceptual overview. Really, really good. I don't know why I would have gotten rid of it. It's definitely a history book to keep. So when I saw it, I grabbed it. And then speaking of Barbara Pym, I've mentioned this book many times. I think I've hauled it a couple of times. Every time I get it, I give it away. Every time I get a copy of this book, I find somebody who hasn't read it who really should and give it to them. So every time I find a copy, I get a copy. And thanks to the Brattle's constant overturn, I find copies all the time. This is A Very Private Eye by Barbara Pym. This is a wonderful, captivating volume of diaries and letters and journals and whatnot. It's not an official autobiography. It's not a formal book that she ever wrote herself, nor is it a book that anybody wrote about her. It wonderfully straddles the two worlds. It's her voice all throughout, but not necessarily her voice as she would have polished it for publication. It's just delightful. I don't know of many volumes like this. And wish that there were volumes like this for all sorts of mid-century authors, especially mid-century British authors. But this is the first part is a fascinating hodgepodge of stuff from her younger life, and then the second part is my favorite. It's a hodgepodge of stuff from her life as a burgeoning novelist, a novelist getting more and more popular, so I'm willing to take it, even though it has this as a author photo. And as you can see, if you close in, isn't the cat pleasant? Doesn't that creature look so happy? But this was put together by her literary executor and another editor, and I can't wait. Every time I get it, in addition to shoring it up and cleaning it up and cleaning it off and then setting the clock for when I'm going to send it out to somebody, every time I get it, I also reread it and get more out of it every single time. So I was very happy to find it. Then this next one, a huge Megillah of a work of history. I had it originally when it came out and really liked it, then got rid of it somewhere along the line. And at the Brattle, you see things like this in perfect condition for $1. So I couldn't pass it up. It's The Civilization of Europe in the Renaissance by John Hale, his masterpiece of Renaissance history. Just a big, beautiful volume for $1. How was I going to pass that up? Especially since it's been a long time since I read it. I read it when it first came out, 1994. Good Lord. It came out in America in 1994. I read all the reviews first, and then I read the book. And of course, in 1994, I wasn't reviewing books, so I read it and then talked about it with my beagles. so now I have a chance to go at it again. And then this next one's probably the find of the day. I was overjoyed to see it. This is Nicholas Shakespeare's biography of Bruce Chaplin in a UK hardcover. It was a little bit on the raggedy side, so I had to reinforce it. I had to fix it up. But I read it and loved it. It is a great modern biography. So every year has, as you know, if you follow my year's best list, every year has 10 at least great biographies. But of those 10, even of those outstanding 10, there'll only be usually one, at most two, biographies in any year that are monuments, that are done with such erudition, such eloquence, such energy, that they really are keepers forever. We saw one just a little while ago. In fact, it might have been my last Brattle haul. Hugh Brogan's biography of Alexis de Tocqueville is another one like that. And this, Nicholas Shakespeare's book on Chaplin, is one of those. So, and I don't have mine. Got rid of it long ago. I think this made the appropriate biography list when it came out, but now I have it again, and now I can just keep it. And then the last thing I got, it was in terrible shape, but it's the third New Yorker cartoon album from ages ago. This must be the 1930s. 1929. This is from 1929. It's just a collection of New Yorker cartoons. That's all. And I love them. I love New Yorker cartoons. And I'll take any collection that I find, because if it's a duplicate, I can just use it. I can cut it up and use it for other things. Paste some of them into my journals. Use some of them for homemade book covers if they're perfect for that. I love these volumes. I just love them. So, and for dirt cheap money, if I see one at the Brattle, and I often do, I'll just grab it and have the joy of flipping through it again, and then either keep it or get rid of it. So there you go. That was a Brattle visit. Increasingly rare these days. I'm going to have to do something about that. I know what the reason is. Mainly the reason is I don't like leaving Frida. And everyone tells me she's okay. She's perfectly all right. She's not codependent. She's not shrieking or howling or miserable when I'm gone. She's a very smart adult dog. When I leave, she settles down and semi-snoozes until I get back. And I don't need other people to tell me that. She tells me that herself. It's not agony for me to leave her. It might be agony for me to leave her for long, but for the course of a few hours, when I'm out doing errands, meeting people, and going to the Brattle, I could do that more often than I do. So, but then again, book 2, the goal here is to decrease the number of books. So anyway, this is a battered old New Yorker cartoon collection that doesn't even extend past the 1930s. That's wonderful. That'll have a lot of early ones that aren't reprinted in later volumes. Then Nicholas Shakespeare's great biography of Bruce Chaplin. John Hale's The Civilization of the Renaissance in Italy, or Civilization of the Renaissance in Europe. Then A Very Private Affair, A Very Private Eye by Barbara Pym. I'm getting all the titles wrong. A Very Private Eye by Barbara Pym. This is her letters and journals throughout all of the stages of her life. Then Patriot Battles, A Military History of the American Revolution. Crampton Hodnett by Barbara Pym, one of her originally unpublished novels. She wrote it and then put it away. The Cats in Our Lives. Don't ask me why. And then 3 Georgette Heyer mysteries. That are going to be so much fun to just blast my way through. So that is a Brattle book haul, an increasingly rare thing. I'll try and get there again sometime in August. And when I do, you'll be the first to know. So I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.